All right, welcome back to the program. In case you're just joining us, it's time for the interview segment. My guest is joining me right now. He is Onyekachi Chukwu. He's the Senior Program Officer at PPDC. PPDC is Public and Private
Development Center.
I don't know what's actually wrong with me this morning. Perhaps I'm still in the holiday mood. It seems my brain is not trying to connect. Focus. You've just got to focus. Perhaps I'm still in the salam mood. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Now, let's get started. I know your organization and other organizations also conduct researches around what we're discussing this morning. But for people that are watching and are wondering what we're talking about, DTS, digital technology systems, especially in Nigeria.
Right.
Explain to our viewers what DTS means, digital technology systems.
Okay, so I'm just going to be as explicit as possible.
And it's very simple.
Very simple, right? So it's the everyday digital technologies that we use, starting from the biometrics, the artificial intelligence, the facial recognitions. I mean, this is something that literally everybody uses it, from you registering for your JAM, your GCEs, your common entrance, basically all those systems, they're all digital technology systems. Yes, exactly.
You know what my mind went to now? the discussion around electronic.
Oh, right. Okay.
Every other thing is electronic. Why are we refusing to go electronic concerning our elections?
Right.
But that's a topic for another day.
Okay.
You know, I don't want to delve into all of that. My colleagues in the political space are looking at that.
Right.
Perhaps I could delve into all of that at a time, perhaps looking at the economics of it and how much all this paper and traveling from Abuja or Bayelsa to Abuja would cost. But that's an issue for another day. So in simple terms, that's what
That's what digital technology systems are, yeah.
Okay, how is procurement of DTS in Nigeria like? Because I know that procurement for the MDAs, of course, I think Procurement Act of 2007 or so, yeah. We do that, but for DTS, I don't think it's there, is it?
No, it's not actually, because the Act has actually provided those things are referred to as special goods in this instance. So it's usually the prerogative of the president, the approval and all. But from the research conducted recently, I think the Ministry of Defense, they're actually coming up with a Defense Procurement Act for DTS, for security agencies, because majority of the DTS procurements that are done in Nigeria are usually mostly for security instances, as well as for INEC, just like you mentioned. Of course, the whole technology, they're all part of the DTS as well. You also have the recent NIN, which everybody's asked to link their NIN details, the BVN and all that. So most of the DTS procurement in Nigeria are basically for these kinds of things, and ordinarily they are supposed to help, obviously, to improve service delivery, to enable the country, the government, have a general idea of the data that is in the country, to enable them render services, provide service delivery equitably. But of course, but then when it comes to the procurement of this DTS, there's very little or no information in that regards, and there's so much money being pumped into procuring DTS, right? So like I mentioned, different agencies, from the security agencies to the National Identity Management Commission, NIDA, FRSC for driver's license, exactly.
INEC.
A lot of people are making use of DTS, right? So, but then there's very little or no information regarding, okay, what have been procured, what kinds of DTS have been procured in Nigeria. Has there been any evaluations to the kinds of DTS that have been procured in Nigeria to actually gauge if these things have been working? Because ordinarily, when you procure these very expensive systems, you're supposed to gauge and evaluate if these systems have been working in Nigeria, if there are rooms for improvement, what has worked and what hasn't worked in the past.
So for the fact that we don't have that data, because it's existing,
yes,
the data there's the data we're looking for now, which we can't have. What does it really say of our procurement process around that DTS? Does it really leave room for perhaps corruption?
Right.
Leave room for some hanky-panky around the procurement process?
Well, the truth is that it's not just peculiar to DTS. Pretty much it's around all the whole public procurement in Nigeria. There's very little or no information there, and that's one of the major focus of my organization, public procurement, tracking procurement across different sectors, right? And in the course of doing this, we try using the Freedom of Information Act, right, to request for information regarding procurements done by different agencies, including the security sector. And we've been doing this for over 10 years. There's usually no response, especially from the security agencies, about what kinds of procurements that they make. And I understand it's confidential, it's sensitive information and all that. But then there's a question of...
would the procurement of those things be confidential information?
Well, some would be.
Because in other clients,
right,
I can look up now and find out, okay, how many digital stuff was bought, let's say for LAPD, for example.
Right.
An American citizen can have that.
Can get it.
So why is it difficult in Nigeria? I'm not saying give me the totality of what you are going to do with those digital systems. But how many of those things have been procured and how much has been spent?
You're very correct, right? But then the argument is those things are sensitive information, considering that most of this technology is actually used for combating terrorism and all that. Exactly, right? But then our own argument now is at what time does a particular procurement lose its sensitivity, right? So if you procure something, say, in 2002, you can't still say it's sensitive or confidential in 2021. So these are the kinds of arguments we're making. So if something is confidential, it's sensitive at this particular time, but after some time it loses its sensitivity, what then? When can we assess these records? Because Nigerians have a right to actually know. We look through the budget, billions of naira are being budgeted every year for those things, but we don't know what exactly it's being bought. And we don't, nobody can actually evaluate, okay, these things, we've bought it, say, 20 times. It hasn't worked. Can we do something else? Right, but since we don't have that information, we can't even make that kind of comparison.
This is really, it's not a funny issue.
Right.
It's not really funny. And why I'm saying so is because how much of the open budgeting system have we even seen across board concerning other things, let alone the digital process? So what you're saying right now is opening my eyes to look at that digital procurement is even the worst. It is.
I mean, it's probably some of the most expensive procurements that are being made, especially pertaining to security sector and all that. I mean, we're still talking of INEC as of today. They also make use of all this. The banks make use of it for the BVNs. We almost every, even with the new IPES for civil servants, almost every parastatal right now makes use of the DTS.
But the banks will put it in their books and what they're doing.
Right, of course.
Yes.
Then it also goes to the next, it now begs the question of all this data that's being collected from Nigerians. What is being done with it, right? So are they safe in the hands of both the government and then the private sector? So it's a whole lot of things. And from the research we recently conducted in Abuja, it's so sad to realize that most Nigerians have no idea of what this DTS is. They know what it is. Like I explained, everybody knows you've done biometrics, you've done your whole artificial intelligence thing, and everybody knows facial recognition. Everybody is aware of that, but they don't really know what goes on behind those things. So you just come in, you thumbprint, you put your data and all that. Nobody goes further to ask, what are these data? What are they doing with it? Where is it being stored? Is it being misused? Can people listen on your conversations? Can people listen in or read your text messages and all that? Because a lot of these people have access. You know, when we read through your phones, we agree to terms. Most of us don't read through those things. So the moment you agree to those terms, you've accepted a lot of, but then your data, to what extent is your data protected? Those are some of the issues that are actually falling out from the research, because really Nigerians have no idea of what is going on behind us.
Okay. Did you get more answers doing that research?
Yes, we spoke to about 350 people across 4 area councils in Nigeria. That's Amak,
That's in Abuja.
Yeah, in Abuja. And this research was also carried out in Uganda and Liberia as well. So there are similarities really, especially when it comes to rural areas. People really have no idea of what these things are. And it's a requirement now. I mean, the NIN thing is ongoing, everybody, and then we're linking it to our SIM cards. Everyone's trying to link it to your international passports. I understand, and it's a good idea that we're trying to have a central database for Nigerians, which is great. Long overdue, but very great. But then the question now is, those data, how safe are our data?
So give me the answer.
Well, it's for us to find out, right? Oh. It's a question now for us to ponder on and try to investigate. But how safe are these data? To what extent our citizens' rights being protected online, because there's also the Digital Rights and Freedom Bill of 2016, which is supposed to protect our rights and our freedoms online, right? To what extent has this particular bill been implemented in Nigeria?
You know, okay, you talked about data privacy. I think we'll come back to
Right.
that later, because that is a whole
Different conversation.
yes, a different conversation. But I'm trying to look through here, and I'm seeing that, of course, you talked about NIMC, that's NIMC,
Yeah,
what
NIMC.
they call it, you know. We also have Federal Road Safety collecting data. We have immigration collecting data. We have our banks collecting data. We have which other body?
Even your JAM people are
Yeah,
collecting.
JAM people collecting
yes.
data, you know, INEC collecting data and all of that. Do you see us harmonizing the proliferation of these
Right.
data? Do you see us having, you know, one source or one database for all of this? And who houses it? I know the question will be, okay, the answer will NIMC should.
Right.
Yeah.
I think they're the ones currently trying to do that right now.
To do that.
Yes.
But when do you see that harmonization?
Well,
And will it really solve that problem of, you know, we should all have a central database? Will it also solve that problem about if I have issues with my data being infringed on, who should I go
right.
to?
Yes, it will definitely solve the problem. In other climes, it's easier. You know that this particular agency houses all the data. So if there's a problem, everybody knows who exactly you're to, you know, query. So I think that's what NIMC is trying to do. And after that, there's also a push to also set up an agency who will be managing this data.
Another agency?
Yes, because that is not really their job. The job of the agency now would be to ensure that these data sets, these people's data, are not being misused.
So
and
what would the
abused.
NIMC do? Because if we're talking about another agency, it's bringing up another bureaucracy.
Well, they're not necessarily an agency. It's more like a board, more or less, right? And then, of course, to also come up with another act.
Or a department under NIMC. Oh, what should NIMC be doing?
NIMC is they're looking for registering Nigerians, right? To have
after they gather all those
data,
yeah.
you still need an independent body to be able to ensure that these things are not being misused.
Is that what you guys think?
That's my own personal opinion, right?
Okay.
That's what I feel. It still needs to have another board, more or less, sort of trying to ensure that these things are not being misused. And, of course, to also push for a bill also to protect these data rights, because the current bill actually doesn't really speak explicitly on how these data rights should be protected.
So are you calling for like a special law around for DTS?
Right. So, like I mentioned, during the validation of the report, the Ministry of Defense had hinted that they are actually almost concluding their Defense Procurement Act. So it will be a procurement act that will strictly be for defense. So any DTS procurement by any security agency would have to use that Defense Procurement Act. And we're hoping that in that particular act, they'll actually specify what exactly signifies as defense procurement, because that's usually Nigerians' problem. When they put something in the law, it's always so porous. You can't actually pinpoint exactly what this particular thing means, right? So when you say defense procurement, does it include, should be able to tell us what includes? Does it include guns? Does it include computers? Because you people procure computers too, and you say it's sensitive information. How are computers sensitive information? You procure cars, and they're sensitive information. So what is sensitive? So that's why we're hoping that when they have the Defense Procurement Act, it will also specify what is a defense procurement.
Just like you said now that defense is coming up with its own. Are you seeing that across border or across other agencies, or is it?
So I think they will
defense?
they will come up with that, and that will be used for all security agencies.
No, how about for other?
Yes. Others are using other non-security apparatus. They'll be using the Public Procurement Act, of course, which is already what is being used in making procurements that are not security procurement.
Yes. Are you guys just interested perhaps on the security part of it? Because I also know, just like we said, other agencies procure digital technology things, you know. Should there be a special law too around that, since it's just normal general procurement law?
Right. No, there should be. For some time now, there's been calls for amending the Public Procurement Act. I mean, since 2007, to put into consideration recent happenings, recent events, and everything. So it's all part of it, because If, say, an INEC procures DTS, that's not sensitive in this instance. They are procuring biometrics, they are procuring artificial intelligence, they are procuring facial recognition and all that. That is not any defense.
The banks have it already.
Do you understand? So it's everybody should be able
yes.
to know, okay, this is how much INEC procured this is the number of DTS INEC procured for how much, this is who they procured it from, and all that. And then, of course, over time, they should also be able to tell us, we'll use this particular DTS, this is how it's working, it's serving its purpose, it's serving Nigerians and all that. So it's definitely something that is being also pushed into the Public Procurement Act.
Let's talk about the data privacy, which we mentioned earlier.
Right.
Yes, I would like you to expatiate on it around protection laws. I know at the time the Ministry of Digital, what do they call them again? Everything is just getting
Ministry
out
of
of my
Communication
head.
and Digital Economy, right?
You know, I was talking about that at the time. So speak to me about data protection, data privacy, protection laws. Do we even have any?
Yes, there is. There's the freedom of there's the Data Freedom Bill of 2016, right? That's supposed to protect our rights online, right? So when you're online, it has sections. When you're online, you can be anonymous. Allows you to freely engage without, tracking and all that. But of course, I mean, right now in Nigeria, it's sort of exactly. That's why I'm smiling, right? That was my question when I said, to what extent has actually this bill, to what extent is it being implemented? Because I think sometimes I always tell people Nigerians know how to make very good laws, but when it comes to implementation, we don't make any progress in them. So it's a very wonderful law. But then by the time you go through these things and then you check the current events in Nigeria, you'd actually realize that, but then the question now is, how many Nigerians actually know about this bill, right? There are very few people that know about it. So that's one of the major problems that we are facing, in the sense that awareness, there's very little or no awareness of these things, even though it's something that we encounter every day. But we tend to ignore them because, of course, it doesn't really affect us directly, but in the long run, it does. So when you speak of digital privacy laws, these are your data. I mean, I don't know if you've ever experienced this, where you get a call from your telecommunication, it's a recorded call and all that. These are your information you've given to the telecommunications for a particular purpose. You're not supposed to sell your data to other people. But we have had instances where you get messages from customers. You're not subscribing to these people. Yes. But then they send you messages and you're wondering, where did they get it from?
Where the information is from.
These are the things we're talking about. People are not, our data are being sold, right, to people for adverts, to private companies for adverts and all that. But then nobody's questioning, because we just see them and then we shrug and, delete the text messages from your phone. But they're actually very serious offenses.
What are we supposed to do in that?
That's where you have the bill. All right. I think at some point the NCT had sent a code to say cancel all. If you want to be able to cancel, we didn't really need to get to that particular point, because it was really wrong for the telecommunications to sell your data you used in registering for your SIM to whoever, probably the highest bidder or something. So in this instance, I think the problem with us, probably, Nigeria has, our problem is always interwoven in such a way, because if somebody has actually picked up one of the telecommunications and taking them to court, and then we had a very quick justice system or something, I'm sure they would have stopped all these things. But because Nigerians just have this habit of, I don't care, let's just delete it and move on, it continues. But then until we start asking questions and trying to have an understanding of, oh, these things are actually wrong, because trust me, people don't even know that these things are wrong.
Do you think that perhaps because we're not asking questions enough, that's why things like what you're saying right now is still festering? You think that we're not asking questions enough, or we've not even asked the questions, or we've not asked the right questions, or we are just, I beg, make we leave them. I don't get time. That kind of mentality. Because you mentioned earlier, it's not about the laws, it's about the implementation. Who is responsible for the implementation of those laws? As citizens, what should we do to ensure that those laws are implemented? And if they are not implemented, what do we do as citizens also? Because perhaps there's a bit of docility on the part of Nigerians. That's why the authorities or government seems to, we can do them anything anyway. After 2 days, 3 days, they will keep quiet. that kind of mentality, you know, across everything we do.
We do, really. And you know, we Nigerians, we have this habit of moving on to the next big thing, right? Something happens today, everybody is mad about it. You know, in the next 24 hours, something else comes up, and everybody has forgotten about it. And I think over time, even people who are leading us know that these things work. So sometimes they just bring up other things. So for this, I think the very first thing is people even knowing that these laws exist. That's been the very first thing. Because you have to know and understand something before you're able to ask questions, talk more of the right questions, right? So they don't even
ask that. Ask questions then. It's not just asking questions,
but asking the right questions.
Yes.
But before you're even able to ask the right question, you need to understand.
From a point of knowledge.
Exactly, because if you're interacting with me and I know exactly what this law says, it's difficult for you to confuse me, because I can quote sections and tell you, this is what the law says. But if Nigerians don't even know that these kinds of things exist, it makes it difficult for you to even ask questions. So that's the very first thing. There needs to be awareness on this DTS, the bill that exists, the provisions, what that is inside, and then I think there's a bit of some civil sanctions in the bill for when someone misuses your data or sells your data without permission. I mean, this guy, Mark Zuckerberg, almost had a case which I think is still ongoing. The same data violation. These things are happening in other countries, but with us, I think it's probably because, for lack of better words, we have more pressing issues.
Oh.
I guess. I mean, I can't really understand why people overlook these things, and I feel it's a result of ignorance. People not understanding what these things mean and to what extent the implication of these things people are doing, selling your data without your permission. You don't even know if people are able to track your move, right? So these are some of I think this is where we're supposed to start from the place of awareness, from the place of knowledge. And then by the time we know about these provisions that are available to us, understand them, understand how they work, then it makes it easier for us to start talking of sanctions for parents when they are being abused.
I'm curious right now to know the result of that research that you guys did. What the citizens were saying and what were their perceptions. You said you did it in Abuja.
Yeah.
When you were even asking them the questions, what was their perception? Do they even understand what you guys were asking? So just give me a sense of what happened while you were conducting that research.
Oh, okay. So like, you know, when people hear DTS, digital technology systems, sounds like it's a very big something, but it's actually something that we see every day, right? So by the time you're explaining to them these things, they're like, oh, okay. And then you're asking, do you know the reason why you're being asked to link your SIM, your NIN, BVN, and all that? Some of them really don't know. Some will say it's for security. Some will say it's for democracy. Some will say it's because they were asked to, right? So you just have a sense that people don't even understand why they need to do these things. And that is where I think, somewhere else, I think the government has failed in terms of awareness. They've not really explain to the people the reasons why they need these things, because sincerely, for any government today to actually function properly, you can't do that without technology. You can't do that without digital technology. You need to have the data of every Nigerian, because you can't say you're providing service for people you don't even know. You don't even know the number of people that live in a particular, exactly. And the only way to get this data is through this DTS, right? So I think that's the place we had failed by not even giving people enough awareness to know why they need to do it. And I think that's some of the reasons why some people up to date have not gone to link their NIN, right? Because people have this misconception that, they want to use it to track us, right? You know, a lot of people have a lot of conspiracies and all that. Because they have not been able to create this proper awareness to people and explain to them that these things are for your own good. I think that's one of the major findings from that particular. And then another is the one I had mentioned about the Defense Procurement Act, which is being finalized. Hopefully we'll also be able to get that. Then another thing also was, of course, in the course of doing the research, when it comes to procuring DTS, no data. Really, there's no information. Yes, you might see that in the budget it costs 4 point this, but you don't know exactly what was purchased, right? You can't tell exactly this is what was purchased, this is what it's for.
Where did the money go to? No, it's not a joking matter.
No, you know, sometimes when I laugh about it, it's not because I'm finding them funny, but because it's to me, I feel like there are very simple things that people should be able to explain without, you know, people having to put a lot of pressure on them. I mean, this is public funds. Do you understand me? I don't need to force you to tell me. If I send you to the market, and you come back from the market, I'm asking you, okay, can you give me a breakdown of what you bought? We have the right to ask you for that.
With
but
public money.
With public money. I mean, this taxpayers' money. So we have a right to know. But over time, we've grown with this sense of, okay, we call it government money. That's what Nigerians call it now.
Government money is your money.
But it's government
There's nothing like government money. It's our money. It's our money that is keeping them there. Yes, it's our money that keeps the president in Aso Rock.
But a lot of people don't know. They call it government money. These people will destroy government properties and say it's government property.
Properties, our property.
It's your exactly. So it's not government money. It's not government property. So those are some of the things that we had, had found from the research. The highest of them was very little or no awareness and no data regarding DTS.
Were they interested to know the privacy of their data and perhaps if it's sold and all of that, or it was like sung to their ears? They were like, oh, really? Can those things be done?
They were hearing it for the first time.
Really?
Because, like I said, a lot of us get these messages now from random people. You're wondering, I've never purchased anything from this person. I've never subscribed. How were these? I mean, these days when you even log on to some websites, they ask you if you want them to track you. Those are the kinds of things. But a lot of times we don't even do those things here, and we take them for granted, right? So, speaking with them on the streets, it was really. It was news to them, right? They were amazed by the fact that, oh, these things can actually be done. They had no idea. It's something that everybody just sees and, moves on to the next thing, really.
If we take a look at the digital policy, really, how can you just oppose it? Because, of course, this ministry is a new ministry.
Right.
Ministry of... Yes, but it was during Jonathan, I think.
Is it the Ministry of Communications?
Yes,
okay.
Ministry of Communications. It was during President Jonathan's administration that it was created.
Right.
Just oppose everything we're talking around right now with digital economy, with digital policy. Okay.
So I think what the major problem here is, like I mentioned, Nigeria has good policies, right? Good laws, everything, but implementation.
Will you say something is good if you don't implement it?
Well, I mean, it's good on paper.
Anyway, good on paper.
Right, so maybe you pick them up and you read them and say, oh, Nigeria actually has this kind of thing, so you mean I can actually do this? But, like I said, we find it difficult to read some of all these things, right? And when the lawmakers make the law, the judiciary is supposed to interpret these laws, there's very little engagement between the public and some of these guys here, because these things are supposed to be broken down such that you and I should be able to explain it without having to use their terminologies per se. So I think for me, personally, it's all about being able to bring these different laws and policies together and being able to bring proper sanctions. That's what I feel. The sanctions that have been provided in the bill, for one, it's just minimal. I think people will be more afraid if they know that these sanctions there are a lot, especially because you'll be amazed how much this data you think they might sell probably one person's data for, say, even if it's as low as 15 naira. You know what that means when you take the whole of Nigeria's data and you're selling to somebody. So if they're meant to pay fines, they have jail terms for abusing someone's data or invading someone's privacy online or hacking people and all that. I think that's where we're supposed to start from, to be able to speak about whether some of this digital policy and the rights in the bill and all that are working.
I know that's what they call the NDEPS, I think launched by the NCC last year. As we close this session, should the media also take responsibility? I know why I'm asking, because of course you've talked so much about ignorance, for communication, and what have you. Should we also take a chunk of the blame?
Well, of course. I mean, almost every media is online right now. So, I mean, when you speak of media...
Does it allow us to be online?
Exactly. I mean, so when you speak of media and you speak of media online, to me, I see them as the same, pretty much, So, definitely, media has a whole lot of role to play by actually trying to understand these laws and the bill as well themselves, and trying as much as possible to also educate Nigerians on these things in different creative ways, right? Animations, adverts, in simple terms, the way that they can understand. I believe Nigerians definitely, once Nigerians understand something, I believe it's easier for them to actually demand for those things and actually fight for it.
Any last words?
Well,
we've said everything.
I've said everything. Let's just do better as Nigerians. That's all I can say. Yeah.
Let's do better. In every facet of this society, let's do better. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
Onyekachi. For me, really, so today's expose is like And we're saying we don't have money, we don't have money. The ones we have, what have we used it for? Spending it judiciously.
Right.
You know, if we ask questions like, why are you asking those kind of
What
questions?
do you want to do with it?
What do you want to do with it? Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
All right, I've been speaking with Onyekachi Chukwu, Senior Program Officer at PPDC, Private Public Development Center. Okay. So many acronyms in this, my brain. So pardon me.
I know.
All right, that's the much we can take on today's edition of the program. Thank you all for joining us. Please join us again tomorrow, same time on this station. I am Nnaji. Be the best you can be and be the change that you want to see. Bye now.